Alrighty, welcome back to Shut Up and Ball. I am Aaron, of course, accompanied by Mr. John Harris. Today we're talking week 2. Did not disappoint from week 1. A lot of crazy games. And we're just going to dive right into it, obviously. So obviously we do our picks against the spreads, in case you didn't know. And we had a lot of differences going into this week. I forgot how many exactly. I know I had the counter before, but nonetheless,
I think it was 10. I think. I might be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure it was a lot.
Because I think it was 9 because it was an odd amount. So even if didn't really matter, or it did matter. John finally grabbed a lead, went 9-7. I went 7-9. Let's just say the later games on Sunday afternoon did not go my way. We'll talk about that more later. But first, we'll start in. John mentioned Thursday game. We're going to start with that Thursday game. Kansas City Chiefs beating the Chargers 27-24. It was as expected. I think we expected a little more fireworks, but nonetheless had some exciting moments. So I guess start with the Chiefs, John. What were your thoughts on how they, executed this game?
Well, first off, feel free to jump in on whenever this part, but I kind of thought the Chargers actually looked like the better team here. I know that they lost, but I really thought that they were. I mean, outside of like that Justin Herbert pick 6, I felt like the Chargers were in complete control the whole game.
Yeah, offensively, especially in the first half, I felt that they were just kind of abusing the Mike Williams matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I think second half, and we'll talk about Kansas City Chiefs defense later. Obviously, credit them. I think they obviously started doubling because we're shading more attention his side. I think in the second half they really started to miss Keenan Allen, just someone else that could get open.
Yeah, that was definitely a key miss right there because, I mean, the announcement team, they were talking about it the whole time during the halftime show is Mike Williams is destroying them. We have to stop that. And then I'm pretty sure his touchdown was in the third quarter. I might be wrong on that. But once that happened, I don't think he caught another pass the rest of the game. I think he was maybe targeted like once or twice after the touchdown. So, yeah, the stopping Mike Williams is a pretty key factor here. But regardless, I still felt like the Chargers for most of the game were better. This wasn't a game in which the run game was really like useful for either team. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like he had that 52-yard run, but outside of that, like they weren't very efficient on the ground. Same with the Chargers. So it really just came down to passing. And I think both quarterbacks won the day here with Mahomes and Herbert. But once Mike Williams got shut down, I don't know. I still thought Joshua Palmer had a pretty solid game. That throw to DeAndre Carter was crazy in the fourth quarter. And I think that the Chargers looked like the better team, like I said. But you got to give a major shout out to the Chiefs for being resilient and just sticking with it and winning. Because that 99-yard pick 6, I don't know if you saw like the little story about the guy who had it and how like a couple of years ago, I think he said he was working in a Wendy's. Like that was pretty cool.
Yes, sir. Yeah. In regards to that, I didn't. So I liked the Chargers' attempt of running the ball. And once again, maybe they're missing Keenan Allen, but I think the line's good. It's just they got to figure out better ways to get to run the ball, maybe more creative run concepts. And that you mentioned the pick that was a Gerald Everett play, right? We don't. I still don't know. I still don't know whose fault that really was. Like,
just real quick,
I want to say it's Gerald Everett.
If he's asking to come out of the game, though, why run hurry up? I get you don't want them to make the sub, but why run a play for him if he's asking to come out of the game? I don't know if it was specifically for him, but at least Herbert pretty much instantly threw it his way.
Yeah, I think that was just the read that Herbert had. I'm not sure if it was for him. I mean, I would assume a hurry up play, is going to be one of your staple plays, so it's going to have multiple options to go to.
Right.
So I don't want to sit here and blame Gerald Everett, but we don't know. But that was obviously the turning point because from, like you said, I think the Chargers were pretty much in or close to having the driver's seat. It was a pretty even game. I guess you can definitely say that, even if you don't agree with the fact that Chargers were in control. But nonetheless, they were, like you mentioned, they were driving down the field. Herbert wasn't hurt yet, and they looked like they were starting to, I guess, amass another drive to put the Chiefs behind the 8 ball. I'm trying to remember. I think they were ahead, or were they? Trying to see. The pick 6 was when they was tied 17-all. So that would have been 20. Maybe Chargers get ahead. They were knocking on the door.
By the way, Justin Herbert, when you saw that third down play where he threw it like out of bounds, what did you think?
Was it the one where you could definitely tell he was hurt?
It was the one after,
right?
Yes, the
He
one
could
where
have
he
ran.
clearly could have
Listen,
ran
and
for the first down and just
I think that definitely proved it that he was going through something. I mean, obviously he's not a very expressive person. That was one of the knocks on him in the draft.
yeah.
So I think that just goes to show he was definitely toughing it out. It reminds me of way back when Packers had Eddie Lacy NFC Championship game. It was one of the reasons why we lost the game. It was like a 3rd and 10, and remember Rodgers was dealing with the calf issue, and I remember he had just ran for a first down previously, and he could have ran for another one. It was like a 3rd down, but he obviously couldn't, and he tried to flip it last second to Lacy, and Lacy wasn't prepared for it. He was ready to start blocking for him, and it was a little bit, gave me those kind of vibes where it was like, okay, this is obviously, this is a real injury. It's, some people accuse these guys of, not really going, I guess, not toughing out these injuries.
Yeah, once that happened, I truly thought that, oh no, the Chargers are done for. And then the next play, he delivered that strike to DeAndre Carter.
It was a laser.
That was crazy. The fact that he tried to throw it away and then winced and just softly, I was convinced that he was done. And then that next throw was kind of absurd. So that was pretty impressive.
So that was, and then I do want to give credit to their defense too. Here I was praising the Chiefs all last week. And we'll talk about the Chiefs in a second. They played a little bit into the Chargers' hands, but for the most part, they did a really good job. Kelsey only had 2 catches, I believe. Other than that, or 5 catches, 5 for 51. But it's not a Travis Kelsey type game where he's goes off for 9 for 90. And then obviously, I think this was a game where maybe they were missing another game breaker. They were missing Tyreek Hill maybe because no one else really produced. I mean, Watson came in, caught that big touchdown pass, but that's really both touchdown passes really were on Mahomes. So yeah, Chargers defense though, nonetheless, they did a great job in terms of just taking away the big plays and really just taking Kelsey away too.
And body slamming him.
Yeah, that was a little unnecessary, but okay. I mean, it was cool nonetheless, obviously, to see Derwin James do that, but I was just like, that wasn't really necessary. So I'm surprised of all the flags they've thrown this week that they didn't throw unnecessary roughness there. Because there were some poor calls throughout this week, as there always is throughout the regular season, but that was one, especially prime time. I thought that, they would panic, throw the flag there. But, otherwise, I really don't have much to say for the Chargers defense other than that. I mean, obviously, I know JC gave up that touchdown technically, but once again, like I said, I think that's just more of an amazing throw than JC Jackson getting. He did get technically beat by a step, but Mahomes has to have that needle.
I will say too about Mahomes, I was super impressed with his performance in this game, just because last year, obviously, all the teams playing 2 high safeties, not blitzing. The Chargers were notorious for doing that last year. That's Brandon Staley's bread and butter, as he just sits back in coverage. And Mahomes looked so much better in this game than he did most of last year, and just in terms of his comfort level and willingness to just dink and dunk and take what they gave him. And then when the plays did open up, like the Watson touchdown, he threw strikes.
Yeah, and okay, so can we transition to Kansas City? Well, I guess, is there anything else you want to mention Charger-wise?
No.
I think we know. So Kansas City, yeah, obviously, I mean, Mahomes, both the touchdowns were it's just only maybe Mahomes, a handful of guys can make those plays, especially the Watson one. And then even the other one too, I think it was Jerick McKinnon, where, he's buying time and then sidearm kind of angles it right to McKinnon. I mean, not many guys can do that. I only have a concern, and it was a concern going to the game. You kind of already hit on it. I wish the Chiefs were actually a little more patient with the run game. I just felt like early on, they kind of just tried it. I feel like they just ran the ball just to say we ran the ball, and then from there on out, a little too pass heavy. Especially with the Chargers team, like we mentioned last year, that really struggled to defend against the inside run. Chiefs have a pretty solid O-line. I thought maybe they would try to do that. They did that week 1. Didn't see much of Pacheco either. I thought we'd see a little more of him. And we saw Clydesdale rip off that big run. Like, I would just like to see them be a little more patient, integrate the play action game. Yes, their offense is good. I just think those 2 things can make their offense deadly, especially against a really good defense like the Chargers. You're going to need some sort of balance there with their pass rushers on the end too.
Also, I'm surprised that they don't have more creative run schemes, because obviously, they're one of the most creative teams in the NFL when it comes to the passing game and the weird different goal line stuff, the situational play calls, but the run game always feels kind of bland and basic. And when you have guys like Jerick McKinnon, who's, he's not like an elite running back by any means, but he's a pretty crazy, versatile athlete. It just seems like you would get him involved in weird ways. Every year they have like a couple carries for Travis Kelce. It just seems like they could do more of that to get the run game going.
It's an Andy Reid thing. I mean, his specialty, I guess, is more involved in the passing game. It's one of those things where I wish we could meld offenses together in the NFL. I wish we could see a Kyle Shanahan run scheme mixed with like a Josh McDaniels or Andy Reid passing scheme. Just see what kind of offense that would be. But yeah, I mean, I guess in reality, you can't have it all. And these people only have X amount of time, so I'm sure it's Andy's expertise to just make the run game simple. Then, I'll do a bunch of crazy stuff in the passing game. And it is a passing league. So, yeah, I think we're starting to see a little more of that. There's a little bit of resurgence with the Kyle Shanahan tree and like some of the Sean McVay tree. But really, especially Sean McVay tree is more of the pass scheme than the run game. So, maybe that's why. But I want to mention on Chiefs defense, like I said, I already mentioned they made a great adjustment to Mike Williams. Chris Jones is amazing. I mean, he was obviously that front four was pretty underrated. I think I mentioned it last week, but doing very well there. But yeah, like you said, I think ultimately it's just that, and I hate to pin a point to one play, but it's just that pick six was just I hate to say it, but a major swing point, and from there the Chargers were behind the eight ball. With the fact that Herbert got hurt. So, yeah, I really don't have anything to add in regards to Kansas City's defense. I don't know if you had anything else to mention before we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, bend don't break. That was the difference maker in the game. And I feel like that play felt reminiscent of like the Kansas City team that won the Super Bowl, and the fact that, okay, they're not going to stop you that much, but they're going to do just enough to win. They're going to make that one key play that they need to make to keep their hopes alive, and that's what their defense did. Like I said, I thought the Chargers overall in the night looked like the better team, but the defense, they showed up when it mattered.
Yeah, and like we said, they didn't let them get the run game going, made the big adjustment to Mike Williams. Obviously, we'll hopefully get a healthy Keenan Allen next matchup, so we can really see what a fully healthy Chargers team can do, because we already saw the effect that Derwin James, his return, had on the defense, and this is J.C. Jackson's first game as a Charger, so we expect the defense to get better, and hopefully Herbert and Allen can be fully healthy for the next matchup they have. So that was Chiefs-Chargers. Obviously, Chiefs won that one, and I think you technically won the spread on that one as a 4-point spread, so that was one of John's victories. Now we move on to the Sunday games, starting with the New York Giants and the Carolina Panthers. Giants win 19-16 there, so just covering the spread of 2.5. So Giants 2-0, John, and they are tied for a top of the NFC East. What were your thoughts on how they did Sunday?
Okay, real quick about the 2-0 teams. So obviously, I mean, it's 2-0, so you don't want to overreact.
The Panthers were 3-0 last year. But go ahead.
Yeah, so we're gonna go with who do you think is the Panthers of this year? Who do you think is the most fraudulent undefeated team left? The teams left are the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Eagles. Who do you think is the most fraudulent 2-0 team left?
I'm gonna upset some of my friends. I'm gonna say the Giants. The Panthers was like a 50-50 game. It's like a game of that's a game where like, okay, like either team could win. You can realistically see that. And then week 1 Titans, that was a little bit of an upset, but I think we're starting to see the Titans, they have some issues to iron out. I'm going to say they're the most fraudulent 2-0 out of all of them, just because all the other teams, I say, okay, I know what's elite on their team. What they have they just have more elite traits and players on their team at this moment. So yeah, I'd have to say the Giants, unfortunately. I'm guessing you would agree.
Yeah, I agree. That was why I brought it up, because it's the Giants, and I don't like them. But I will say, and I made a little video about this on our YouTube, about how I think it's really interesting. Like, some people don't understand the impact of a coach, but the NFL is a coach's league. Like, if you have a bad coach, Bill Belichick said it best, talent can't overcome bad coaching. And so the Giants, their roster for the most part is kind of the same as last year, but you add Brian Daboll, you add Wink Martindale, all of a sudden you see in these close, tight games that last year they probably would have lost, they won. So shout out to Daboll, shout out to Wink Martindale. I've been really impressed with their coaching staff. And although it sucks that the Panthers lost, because I kind of like the Panthers, the Giants, they were just the better team, the more well-coached team in this game. They showed up when it mattered, like I said, about the last game, and they made plays.
I would say, in regards to the offense, I think they've done a really good job of just making quick, easy reads for Daniel Jones when they do drop back and pass. Obviously, we all know a concern is, Daniel Jones, he fumbles a lot, gets sacked a lot, and one easy remedy is just give him very quick reads so that he get the ball out of his hands quicker. Obviously, healthy Saquon helps too, but I think that's been the main difference for them. And then in regards to their defense, you can see Wink Martindale is a little more of an aggressive defense. And then they already kind of had some of the pieces in place. They had, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams on the inside, two, versatile defensive linemen. And then, Dory Jackson, a guy that we all know is very athletic, very talented. He just maybe hasn't lived up to his athleticism. I think he's, doing pretty well in that system. And even Xavier McKinney, their safety, they're using him in different ways and just keeping offenses off guard with, having them in the box some plays and out of the box some others. Just, being more of a modern defense, I guess, just using your safeties in different ways and fashions. So, I really like what coaching staff has done so far, even though it is still weird, the offense, like what's going on with Kenny Golladay and same with Kadarius Toney. Like they're doing this without those two guys. And obviously, I think there's did you put it in our chat, or I think was it Dogger, about how Kenny Golladay cleaned out his locker? We haven't heard any news about that, so I don't know. Maybe he was just doing spring cleaning. I don't know, but probably not, since he didn't get much action. I don't think, anyways. So that'll be interesting to see.
For anyone who doesn't know, there was a report from, I assume, a Giants reporter, considering they were in the Giants locker room, but they just said that they went into the Giants locker room. Kenny Golladay was not there, and his locker had been cleaned out. This was after the game, and that's pretty bad. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, did he even get a single target in this game?
Let me pull that up.
Did he play much at all? Like, I'm looking at the box score.
His
name doesn't even show up, so he didn't get a target. But I don't even know if he played.
I'll check in the sleeper app if he got snaps. But go ahead.
And then Kadarius Toney, same thing. I mean, he did play. He got 3 targets, and he had 2 catches, but he had 0 yards. So, one he got 2 yards, the other one he lost 2 yards. So I don't know. It's so interesting. And I mentioned this in our old chat too, that I find it kind of, he played. He got 2 snaps.
2 snaps is what he got.
That's
according to sleeper.
Crazy.
Sleeper app. Could be wrong, but
for a receiver who is like one of the top 15 paid receivers in the whole NFL, led the league in touchdowns when he was in Detroit. That's crazy. But regardless, I mean, it's just kind of shocking that 2 different coaching staffs. I mean, last coaching staff, they at least used Kenny Golladay, but now 2 different coaching staffs are not using Kadarius Toney. I do not understand it.
I'm surprised. Like you said, I'm surprised it's not a huge story. It's in New York, where every little thing gets blown into the story. We know very well about how things get overhyped or just blown up. The Daniel Jones, Josh Allen video got a lot of interesting takes there, to say the least. But yeah, it's one where I guess we'll have to wait and see. Like, I don't know. As a Packer fan, if I'm just saying, I said in our group chat, if Golladay gets released, I mean, I would like to take a shot at him. I mean, I don't know. It's been a weird tenure because, I mean, I liked what I saw in Detroit. It's just, for some reason, it hasn't worked out in New York, and same with Kadarius Toney. We both like the talent. We've seen the talent from Kadarius Toney, at least in a Giants uniform. We've seen him pop. It's just, for some reason, I don't know if it's like a personal thing, maybe between him and the coaches. Maybe he's not, rubbing off the right way with coaching staffs. I don't know.
See, but that's the weird part. I feel like if there was like some locker room drama or something, we would have heard something in the reports. Like, there's maybe it's just because we're not in New York, so we don't like hear the local stuff. But like, I haven't heard a single thing that's indicating that like Kadarius Toney has a bad work ethic, or he's not showing up in practice, or he's being outperformed by other people. Like, I haven't heard any of that stuff. And so, if you're a Giants fan and you're listening, correct us if you have heard that stuff in the comments, I guess.
Yeah, so even despite all that potential noise, still finding ways to go 2-0, winning the game. So now we'll go to Carolina, and I do want to start with basically I feel like Carolina killed them with just a bad start. They were already behind the 8 ball, literally fumbled the opening kickoff, Chuba Hubbard, and then I believe it was that very first offensive possession too is when Robbie Anderson. So it's 2 fumbles to start your day off. Giants were already in plus territory. I mean, credit Carolina's defense. I think they especially for the opening kickoff fumble, because it could be tough whenever you're sitting there and then okay, your offense, like, they're thinking our offense is going to be out there. We can chill for a second. They're like, oh shoot, the fumble. We got to get up, and now we have to. All of a sudden, we have to get into defensive mode and stop them, and all the momentum's on their side because it's on New York. So I want to give credit to the Carolina defense for holding strong. They were definitely not the reason.
They only allowed 4 yards right after that fumble.
Yeah.
Too. 4 plays, 4 yards. That was a good stand.
Yeah, so both times, like, holding their ground, it could have been very ugly. It could have been 14-0, 10-0 after those 2 fumbles. Instead, it was probably second best case scenario, 6-0. So credit them for keeping their team in this game. But I just wanted to throw a shout out to them. But obviously, its early turnovers killed Carolina's momentum.
I think even the other drive right after the Robbie Anderson fumble was impressive, too. It was 13 plays, only 25 yards. 13 plays. That's kind of crazy. I assume there had to be some penalties in there or something that like got that called back. But really, really impressive defense from the Carolina Panthers to hold strong for most of the day. Honestly, even like outside of that one drive where the Giants scored a touchdown, the Panthers are pretty resilient. It was just the issue was they just kept letting them get into field goal range.
Well, and then again, too, like, twice they're already in field goal range. So
that's actually not their fault. That was the offense's fault.
It's not special teams. I mean, behind the 8 ball a little bit there. But otherwise, I mean, the offense has been better this year with Baker Mayfield, but I think that's kind of expected. I think we all can agree Baker's a better thrower, and at least a better thrower than Sam Darnold. Probably, I would say the same in terms of mobility, buying time, and obviously he has a healthy Christian McCaffrey. But we'll see what happens with them, but it's tough because I really do want to root for your boy Matt Rule. I like the roster they've constructed. It's just unfortunate that they have not been able to assemble an offensive line, even though they just started addressing it. So hopefully they can turn it around because, like I said, I at least like what he's built. I mean, maybe he may not be the best coach. I don't like Ben McAdoo as an offensive coordinator. That is my one last note I wanted to add is just. Already, it seems like the Giants were on top of what they wanted to do offensively in their plays. And that was a problem for Ben McAdoo as the New York Giant head coach, is that the offense got stagnant with an Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard, a younger Sterling Shepard and such. So we'll see. But I think they still have offensive coordinator issues. And like you mentioned in the previous breakdown, coaching matters, especially at this point. So.
Yeah, I will add on the offensive stuff. I'm a bit concerned about not McCaffrey in terms of the rushing game, but he was only targeted 5 times in the receiving game. And with a guy as talented as McCaffrey, like target him more. I don't know if that's a Baker thing. I didn't watch this game in depth. I was on Red Zone. So I don't know if it's a Baker thing or if it's just a play calling thing, but it seems like get McCaffrey the ball more in terms of receiving. And the same with DJ Moore, like 2 slower weeks. He did have the 29-yard catch. He got a touchdown and he had 6 targets, which is decent, but it just feels like those 2 guys with the electric playmakers they are in terms of receiving should be getting more than 43 yards and 26 yards respectively, especially since the Giants defense, like they've looked good to start the season, but there's like, no reason that McCaffrey shouldn't be exploiting anybody on that defense.
Yeah. Also, I did what I'm saying. I wish they were a little more patient with the run. They actually were doing pretty solid running wise this game. They're having some solid gains. I know McCaffrey broke the 49-yarder, but even then, you take that away, you still have 14 carries for like 53 yards. That's trying to do quick math, like 3.5 yards per carry. That's still pretty solid. And Foreman, I would just like to see a little more incorporation of that. I know I feel like I say that every time, but I mean, the game didn't ever really got away from them. And obviously their offensive line's not great, so that would help. But otherwise, I don't have anything else to mention. Let me see. I don't have anything else in regards to Carolina or New York. So I hate to brush past that one quickly, but not much else to say there. Obviously, I was right. I had New York, John and Carolina. New York just barely covered that 2.5 point spread. But now we go to one of the surprises, definitely one of the biggest surprises of the weekend, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They beat the Indianapolis Colts 24-0. They have the lone win in their division. Let's start with the Colts. What's going on with the Colts? Like, that's just the best way I can phrase it.
Yeah, I'm just. This is a statement that I have uttered, and I think it's just time to accept that the Colts probably aren't just a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. Because, I mean, Matt Ryan deserves blame here because he threw 3 interceptions. He wasn't very good on the day. But I think this issue goes a lot further than Matt Ryan. I think this issue shows that Carson Wentz was not fully to blame for everything that's going on with the Colts. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's a Frank Reich thing. I really don't understand the Colts because they just keep showing up short in these games that they should win. And Jacksonville, I mean, you and I are both very high on them this year, so like I'm not shocked that they won this game, and I'm kind of kicking myself for last minute changing my pick to the Colts. But regardless, there's just really I don't see any excuse as to why you should get shut out against Jacksonville because although their defense like had a good day, it wasn't like I don't know. It's tough because you didn't have Shaquille Leonard on your defensive side. You don't have Michael Pittman. So like there's like sort of like built-in excuses, but still you have Jonathan Taylor. You have an elite offensive line. Like I just really do not understand how this Colts front seven is able to just shut down everything that you want to do. And Jonathan Taylor only got 9 carries. Like that part kind of blows my mind too. That has to be a Frank Reich thing because 9 carries for 54 yards. That's good. Like I don't get why you're not running the ball more. It's an embarrassing loss.
And maybe because of that, maybe the game script. Even then, they're only even at halftime up 17-0. Maybe he got impatient, but I will say in regards to missing Michael Pittman, I mean, and also this is a little bit of a dig on Matt Ryan, but Jacksonville just didn't fear the deep ball at all. There was no there's just disrespect, I guess is the best phrase, towards the Colts' abilities to strike deep. I mean, we think about, like I said, I think it's only Paris Campbell is only the really guy that would scare you, and he still wasn't as polished a wide receiver. So, yeah, I mean, I felt like Matt Ryan also too, not really known for having the strongest arm, and as time goes on, it's not going to get any stronger. So I felt like too that probably handicapped the Colts in the fact that, and I have to go back and watch the game fully, but it seems like the Jaguars were all over there. They didn't let Jonathan Taylor get going, and from there on out, the Colts were one dimensional, and especially with missing, like you said, a huge piece like Michael Pittman, and also Alec Pierce was also out, their rookie, who they've already had some snaps week 1, so it seems like they've already have some trust in him, but then all of a sudden he's out. Yeah, that was huge for their offense, I think. I think that's why they had such a poor performance. Also credit Jacksonville's defense. I think we've mentioned it before. This is a team that's very talented. It's just they got to put all the pieces together. But then on the Colts defense, like you mentioned, yeah, I think they're missing Shaquille Leonard big time. I know DeForest Buckner's good, but he's really their only difference maker right now. Stephon Gilmore hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been the Stephon Gilmore of old. And really, especially in this matchup and last week, there wasn't like a marquee number 1 receiver that he has to lock down. So I think that kind of works against them a little bit. So, yeah, it is scary times in Indianapolis, but I will also agree with you. Like I would have liked to still see a little more Jonathan Taylor because I'm looking at the drive right now. So obviously first drive they went 7 plays and then he threw a pick. Next drive they did run the ball. They ran the ball once on first down, and then second down they dropped back and pass, and Matt Ryan got sacked, so that ruined that drive because they had a punt. And then for some reason they run a sweep to the left end the next possession for 3 yards. They did run Jonathan Taylor, so I guess I will give them credit. They tried to run, but they just didn't have anything else besides that, and Jackson was all over it. In my opinion, I don't know, but.
Also, this is just a completely selfish point, but on Jacksonville's offense, I don't know if you're done talking about the Colts, but on Jacksonville's offense, can we Doug Peterson? Can we talk about Travis Etienne here? Okay, I have him in plenty of my leagues. And I just want to make this real quick point. James Robinson had the 37-yard touchdown run, and I totally get it. It was a great run. Outside of that one carry, if we remove that one carry, he had 22 carries for 27 yards, which is 1.2 yards per carry. And you're telling me that Travis Etienne, who didn't have the greatest today, he had 9 carries for 20, also not super efficient, but Travis Etienne couldn't get like 5 more chances? I just don't get it. I don't get the insistence on James Robinson when Etienne is a playmaker waiting to happen.
I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to keep Etienne fresh. He is a little bit of a smaller, more speedy back. and they did invest first round pick on him, so he doesn't want to run to the ground per se. Well, James Robinson, he's been very good, maybe, and he is more of a physical back. Maybe that was his thought process. Also,
and I will admit too, this is Etienne's second NFL game. We can't forget he missed.
And he's coming off of a Lisfranc foot injury, which can be huge sometimes. So maybe he's kind of on a pitch count too. Maybe they're saying they're keeping him limited that way. Those are the only explanations I really have because I mean, I don't have I technically do have a horse in the race. I have James Robinson in the league, but I didn't even start him this week because I was scared, and I should have too because I started Michael Carter instead, and that he got less points. He didn't fall in the end zone. But I will say in regards to Jacksonville, I do like their offense. It's great when they have an offense and they have a plan. Unlike last year, we already saw Trevor Lawrence very quietly had a good game, 25 for 30, 2 touchdowns, like very efficient.
He was killing them to start that game. Yes. I don't know if you watched the openings of it. He was 10 for 10.
Yeah,
to start the game.
This is the first round pick, for number 1 overall pick that we expected. And once again, you already said the point, but we're seeing what a good coaching staff, which is a good system, is around. We're starting to see it. I mean, even Christian Kirk, everyone, including us, we were very questioning of that move. But hey, 6 receptions, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, that's pretty good. And then Evan Ingram, a solid pickup there, who didn't really work out in New York. He was pretty solid for them too. And like we mentioned, they have the 2 running backs, and as we know, they're probably gonna have a lot of cap space. But I for one really love what they did on both sides of the ball. I think we're just really starting to see the talent finally be put in the right places and utilized correctly, really, on both sides of the ball for Jacksonville.
Yeah, shout out Josh Allen, too. We're going to do our Ballers of the Week later. To me, he just missed the cut. He was close, though. 2 sacks. Obviously, the Jags, Josh Allen, not the quarterback, defensive end. 2 sacks. He had a tackle for loss. He was a pretty monstrous day. And I mean, although he didn't turn it into a ton of sacks, 2 is a lot, but he was in that backfield all day long. Matt Ryan was under so much pressure. I was kind of shocked because they have a pretty good offensive line, but Josh Allen was able to expose the weakness at tackle.
Yeah, and their deep at pass rush. They have him, Trayvon Walker, Caleb Chase on all high first-round picks, even if Caleb Chason hasn't lived up to his billing. He's still an uber-talented guy, and like I said, maybe he starts coming along, and all of a sudden they have a really good 3-headed, just versatile pass rush. So, yeah, let me see. Did I have one more note? Didn't have another note. So, anyways, we'll see if... I guess we'll see if the Colts can turn around. We'll mention it.
I did want to add shout out to Devin Lloyd. He got an interception in that game. That was cool.
Yes, yeah. He was one. I think was he. I don't know. He was
your number 1. He was my number 2 linebacker in the class.
So I would say we both had him pretty high. He fell to all the way to late in the first. I think I got him with one of the last few picks in the first. I think, or high second. So credit them. I'm not sure. Once again, not sure why he fell. But hey, it was Jacksonville's gain, his fall. So now we move on to one of the surprises of the weekend. Another surprise. It was the Jets. The New York Jets making the comeback. I think there's a 0.03% chance they had of winning that game after the Nick Chubb touchdown. And they came back and win 31-30 with Joe Flacco. I guess let's start with Cleveland because they were, like I said, they were in command of this game. They had this game. Nick Chubb ran in the touchdown, and then they missed the extra point, and then it all fell apart from there. So, yeah, what were your thoughts on Cleveland?
Okay, I already recorded the little video. It just hasn't released yet. I don't know if it'll be out when we release this podcast, but I have a little video about this situation because this is kind of egregious for the Browns. So there's been these big stats guys that have basically completely calculated all the situations in which you can kneel the ball out. It talks about how much time is left, what down it is, the timeouts. And I heard Sean Payton talking about this on the radio the other day, where he was like, every coach, you have a little chart, and it just tells you all the scenarios. So you don't even have to remember it. You have this little chart. And in that situation, I don't know. I blame Nick Chubb, but I feel like somebody needs to tell him in that situation or radio into Jacoby Brissett and say, hey, tell whoever's going to get the ball here, they cannot score because we can kneel the game out after, if we get a first down, or I don't even think they needed a first down. I think they could have kneeled it out. Regardless, the Jets did not have any timeouts. They could have completely kneeled the game out and won, and the clock is over. But then Nick Chubb runs the ball and he scores a touchdown. That obviously gives the Jets the ball back. Then another inexcusable mistake, blown coverage. Oh, also, sorry, before that, Cade York, extra point gets blocked. So we have an offensive mistake. We have a special teams mistake. Then right after that, Corey Davis, wide open down the field, blown coverage on the right sideline. And so now we have an offensive, special teams, and defensive mistake. All three phases of the game have failed within like a matter of a minute or less. And so now the Jets are only down by one score. They're going to go for the onside kick. It is such a rare occurrence that the onside kick is recovered. And Amari Cooper did not want to put his body on the line. I don't know what happened to him in that moment, but he had an opportunity to dive on the ball and probably would have got hit while he was doing it, but he did not. And by the way, I still love Amari Cooper. I wish he was still in the Cowboys, but in that specific instance, he should have caught that. So now we have two special teams mistakes, a defensive mistake and an offensive mistake. And then they go down and Garrett Wilson obviously scores the game-winning touchdown. So inexcusable loss from the Browns. They had it. It was like a 99.99999% chance they win this game, and they somehow managed to blow it in the final 2 minutes. Just truly an embarrassing loss for Kevin Stefanski and the staff, because like I said, there's not one specific phase of the game that you can blame for this loss. It is all three of them failed to do their jobs when they needed to in those moments. So good win for the Jets, completely improbable win for the Jets. And I said it in the little video, but this is not the first time I've been critical of Kevin Stefanski, and I'm not saying he needs to be fired, but he needs to be on the hot seat to say, hey, this kind of stuff cannot happen.
I tuned away from this game once I saw, they're up. I think even before the Nick Chubb touchdown, I was like, this game's over. No way the Jets are coming back. But in a way, I was kind of happy the Jets came back. Just on a personal note, I saw a very disturbing post about some Browns fans set up at the tailgate. I'm going to keep it up. But anyway, so it's part of the reason why, as in our group chat, I think I said something about the Browns. Anyway, they got what they deserve, basically. But anyways,
also just real quick, we're going to talk about the Lions a little later too. It feels kind of nice that like we were hyping up the Lions, the Jets, and the Jaguars, and they're actually looking good.
Yeah, they're building up. But so anyways, in regards to the actual game itself, Cleveland defense. One of my issues, still very simple in the defense there, and right there. I'm not saying this is the reason why he's not in my top five, but they're running cover 3 in that play, and that was Denzel Ward's zone. Don't know what the communication was, but obviously that big touchdown play, I think it was to Corey Davis, right? Well, the one that set up the onside kick. That was huge. Like you mentioned, I'm not blaming Nick Chubb fully. He does not get full blame. I mean, how is Nick Chubb supposed to know that they're gonna miss the extra point and then let up a touchdown on one play and then also let them get the onside kick and drive again? Anyways, obviously, not stopping before the end zone was an error on his part. But to say it's all, for some of those people that are trying to put all on him, it's not all on him. Like you eloquently went through. And then, Cleveland, for the most part, Cleveland played a good game offensively until that point. Their offense, they moved the ball well. Heck, Amari Cooper had a better game than I thought he did. They were doing pretty good. It's just, like you mentioned, some of those small details at the end just to close out the game, the things that, situational football that every team, every coach, drills into their team, and you probably spend a lot of time on. At least I remember spending a lot of time in it whenever I was in, middle school football and such like that, and that they talk about all the time. Hey, we make sure we practice situational football. That they weren't ready for that, or they just didn't execute their game plan very well at the end. So, that's all I have on Cleveland, and I don't have much on New York. I don't know if you had anything else on Cleveland before I can move on to New York.
That's it.
Yeah, in regards to the Jets, obviously. Probably wrong on Garrett Wilson. He's looking really good thus far. I am very excited / interested to see when Zach Wilson comes back, how the offense will look. But good for Joe Flacco, though, I will say. He's showing that, yes, he's not Joe Flacco of the Ravens. And the reason he's a backup, but he can execute the offense. And like I said, Cleveland's defense, really simplistic, especially for a veteran like Joe Flacco. It was probably an easy day, another day in the office for him. And I think I saw he's like the third third in the passing leaders chart in terms of yards, right?
So I had a buddy sent me this. It says most passing yards in the NFL this season. Number 1, Tua Tagovailoa, 739. Number 2, Carson Wentz, 650. And number 3, Joe Flacco, 616. Just as everybody expected.
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, but yeah. So Joe Flacco proving his worth as to why he's still around the league. Because even then, I was like, even before the season, I was kind of just like, is he really just there for a mentorship role? But hey, showing that he can step in and execute the offense to at least NFL rate because they got the win. But I really don't have much else to say because it was mostly Cleveland blowing the game.
Yeah, I mean, they totally blew the game. Shout out to Joe Flacco for beating the Browns again. Did it for a lot of his career, most of his career, and he's just continuing to do it even though he's on a different team. Breece Hall, I think that he had a performance where you got to start giving him more carries. I know that Michael Carter needs to be in that backfield more, but 7 carries for Breece Hall, even though he got 50 yards, come on. Once again, it's not just because I have him in a lot of fantasy leagues. I just think he's really talented. Get him the ball. Garrett Wilson, I mean, I know it's one game, but he's showing up. He's doing the things that I thought he could do going into this season. He's doing it a little earlier than I expected. And if I'm Zach Wilson, I am just getting so amped and ready to come back with Wilson, Elijah Moore. Corey Davis is still, a really solid player. Michael Carter is still producing well, especially in the receiving game too. So, I mean, they're looking good. Tyler Conklin had a pretty decent showing as well. So I'm getting excited for the Jets. I'm still a little concerned with how often they pass the ball. I know in this game they were behind, so you kind of had to do it a lot, especially in the second half. But I don't know. They weren't really behind for most of the game. Like going to halftime, I think it was tied. And then at the end of the third, they were only down by 3. It was just in the fourth quarter when they got behind. But still, they threw the ball 45 times. They only ran it 20 times. I feel like maybe if you just run the ball a little more, you can sustain more success. Once again, lean on Breece Hall. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm liking what the Jets are doing. I'm really liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, got a good base obviously going. We know they have their skill set. Hopefully their offensive line's solid enough. Hopefully Mekhi Becton comes back good next year, and the defense has got some pieces with Sauce Gardner and some of their ends, and Quinton Williams. So we'll see how much more they can build upon the success. But now we move on to two kind of more established teams and their own division matchup, and that's Tampa Bay Bucs and New Orleans Saints. It came down. There was a lot of emotion in this game. Tom Brady was throwing tablets again. Mike Williams and Marcus Lattimore added another chapter into their hatred and rivalry as they both got ejected. I will say I don't think Lattimore should have got ejected. I felt like he was. Granted, he may have said some things, but I think he was more the victim here. He got pushed by Leonard Fournette and Mike Evans. I don't know. I'm just saying.
To be fair, he didn't get suspended, so
yes, at least he didn't get suspended. Which, hey, it helps my Packers, by the way. Mike Evans is out. Hopefully,
yeah.
He's appealing it, by the way, so who knows? Maybe it'll be fine.
Just real quick before we go into this, too, I was listening to the radio this morning, and they were making this really fun little bit about how, so John Runyon, the NFL disciplinarian officer, his son plays for the Packers, and they were like, well, hold up, that's a little concerning. Why didn't he, pass this to somebody else? He has a stake in the game here. And then they're like, well, but here's the counter. Is if he appeals it, it goes to Derek Brooks, former Buccaneers legend, so he might overturn it. I don't know. I don't think it's going to get overturned, but still just kind of a little funny thought.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. But it was definitely a heated rivalry game, and man, it was those were really only the main fireworks until really later in the game. It was 3-3 for what most. It was let's see, it was 3-0 at halftime, and then going to the fourth quarter, it was 3-3. So it was really some late game fireworks, especially for the Bucs, who at that time had lost Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin. I think though we'll start with the Bucs. I guess they had good patience. It was not a very good offensive game. Definitely leaned on the run game more, and as I mentioned already, Tom Brady missing a lot of his key weapons. No Godwin. Julio Jones, was he injured? I don't think he really had much of an impact this game. Not sure if he got injured.
I don't think he even played. I'm pretty sure he was ruled out.
Okay. And then Mike Evans, as we saw suspended or, ejected from this game. So it was really just tough sledding. It was a great throw he made to Brashad Perryman, which goes to show, why Brady's still doing this at his age. Still got a live arm at age 44, 45, however old he is. But yeah, And also, Bruce Arians is on the field. I don't know. It's just a lot of weird things going on in
Yeah,
Tampa. Even though he's not the head coach, I don't know. But they pulled it out. They somehow, some way. I really don't have much else to add. I mean, their defense, credit their defense. They're very good. Todd Bowles showing why he got the head coaching job. Even though they lost to Keem Hicks in this game, they still, overcame that, found ways, and really just, especially the late turnovers were really key for them in jump starting their offense and getting this win. But it's not much to say in this game because it was very defensive.
Yeah, defensive performance. I also don't have a ton to say. I do love the rivalry that we got going here, though. I feel like with the NFL, there's not always like super heated competitive rivalries. Like we have the historic ones, right? Like Green Bay, Chicago, but that hasn't been competitive in a long time. So they're not as fun to where this one, it's been fun ever since Tom Brady showed up. The Saints have gotten the better of them most of the time, but that playoff game, obviously Tampa beat them, and now Tampa they get their first regular season win against the Saints. So that's got to feel good. Jameis, I mean, he had a little moment in the fourth quarter where he kind of reverted to the old of Jameis, but I think maybe it was just like urgency. He kind of felt panicked, felt rushed, like, hey, I got to make something happen. And so he just tried to make some deep plays that just weren't there. So for most of the game, I was fine with what Jameis did, and I'm not worried about him. I know some people are already clowning him, saying the old Jameis is back. I think he's going to be fine. It was just a heated game. There was a lot of sort of pent up energy, and things just weren't happening. And I think maybe that just led to what happened at the end of the game. So good win for the Buccaneers, but yeah, I'm not worried.
And last point, I will say, just I'm calling out bad calls. Especially this was a huge one on the touchdown drive, the first touchdown drive. Bradley Roby, that was not necessary roughness on him and Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate was bracing for the hit, and yes, he lowered his head into Bradley Roby's head. Like, come on. Like, one of those things where I wish there was some sort of reviewing. I know they tried it for pass interference only, but that was already, I don't know. If you already did it for pass interference, why not do it for all penalties? And you still only have 2 challenges. Like that was a killer because they didn't get the first down, but after the penalty they got the first down and the drive kept going, and they got 15 yards off the penalty. They probably would have punted there since it was 3-3, and who knows what happens after that. I'm just saying, it's stuff like that is a little annoying as fans to watch. But nonetheless, Bucs get like John mentioned, Bucs get the first regular season win in the Tom Brady era over the New Orleans Saints. So that was key. They go to 2-0. Saints go to 1-1. Especially taking a game at New Orleans. But now we move on to possibly the game of the week, definitely for Miami fans. They came back. They beat Baltimore 42-28, 28 points in the fourth quarter. If you had Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill or even Tua in fantasy, you were very much so a very happy camper. So as quote-unquote some of the bigger Tua critics here, what were your thoughts on the Dolphins, John, since they pulled this upset or this comeback up?
Man, I was really impressed, first off, with the offense in the fourth quarter, but I don't want to overreact a little too much, and this is not hate. Do not take this as hate, but they were pretty pedestrian for the first 3 quarters, and that's backed up by the fact that they only scored 14 points throughout the first 3 quarters, while Baltimore was just lighting them up. So I need a little more consistency going forward because we saw the explosiveness this offense has. We just saw the talent this offense has, and we saw that Tua is proving people wrong, and he can have big performances in big games. I just need him to do that for more than just the fourth quarter. I don't know what they figured out in the fourth quarter that all of a sudden changed things, but some flip switched, and they did. So maybe they can do that more consistently moving forward now. It's like I said, it's only week 2 of the Mike McDaniel era, so no need to think that this is going to be a regular occurrence. But I was, like I said, really impressed with Tua. He made great decisions when the plays were there. He made them. I think this shows how nice it is to have an offensive-minded coach who can really utilize your skill set, your weapons to the extreme, because we're seeing Tyreek Hill. He's having monster performances. We're seeing Jalen Waddle. He's having monster performances. And all of a sudden, everybody's starting to say this duo might be the best wide receiver duo in the league. I'm not ready to say that quite yet, but I also don't fully know who I'd put above them. Maybe Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But even that, 2 unproven guys as well. So they might be the best wide receiver duo in the league. I just got to see him do it more often. But regardless, I was really impressed by the Dolphins. yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like it was just a crazy comeback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say this too. Like you mentioned, I'm not sold. I'm not gonna sit here and say, okay, I was completely wrong about Tua, but I'm gonna say I'm impressed. This is what he answered some of our criticism. At least this game was more aggressive, like you mentioned. When the opportunities were there, he took them, and he was aggressive. Obviously with these speedy receivers, took some chances. First interception, not really his fault. It was deflection. Second one, I put a little bit on him, but also at that point, like you mentioned, they were behind. He's trying to force the issue once again. I kind of liked, not to say you can like interception, but I was like, I was okay with it. I was like, okay, he's trying to force the issue, something that has been one of my bigger criticisms of him. But I will say he was aided in a way, and I'm going to move to Baltimore now because I think too this is a little bit on the Baltimore defense. Obviously they're missing some corners. Humphrey and Peters were in and out, and then they obviously had some communication issues, especially on the second to last touchdown. As we saw, Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams, they're talking, obviously very confused because they let I think it was Jalen Waddle, or is either Jalen Waddle or Tyreek? I'm forgetting. I think it was Tyreek. They let Tyreek, of all people, get behind them.
Actually, that was Amar Davis.
Amar Davis,
he was the corner on that side.
But also
the safety. I can't remember which safety it was.
It was. I know Kyle Hamilton was in. It was like three guys. It was those three guys. They all grouped together and were like, they try to get together. But usually when you see that is what I'm trying to get is that, as you know, John, is that there was some sort of miscommunication there, as someone was supposed to do something, and obviously they weren't supposed to let Tyreek Hill run free past all of them. So I think that was a little bit of it. And two, it's typical Baltimore style. They were just too aggressive. Like at that point in the game, like let me pull up the drives, but they didn't even let usually in that situation, I think we all know you're going to play, prevent defense. Okay, let them matriculate, eat up time. Time is your friend. They didn't really let them do that because they're very aggressive. They're Baltimore. I mean, let's see. I'm just looking at the last look at the last five. So one of the touchdown drives, when they were down 14, down 21, that touchdown drive, that took 3 minutes. Next drive, they get the ball, 5 plays, 59 yards, a minute 20. The drive after that, so they're down 7. I think that was the play we were just talking about. 3 plays, 64 yards, a minute 27. So, Baltimore, he had time to play with. I think be less aggressive. You don't have to go for the kill. You don't have to try to blitz and kill Tua to end the game. You could just let time run out. That was also a reason why obviously they lost and why Tua was able to take advantage of those opportunities. Once again, not saying that Baltimore blew this game like Cleveland did, but I just don't understand the mindset there, and it obviously didn't help since it gave Dolphins momentum. And it kind of played into what the Dolphins wanted to do.
Yeah, Marlon Humphrey, after the game, he tweeted that bad defense is going to cost you games. And so I think that the Ravens are aware of what happened. You can't blame the offense for this one. Lamar Jackson, crazy performance. 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he did all of that on only 29 pass attempts. He completed 21 of them. Great game. That not even to mention 119 rushing yards and a touchdown in a game in which the rest of their run game was almost non-existent. It was just Lamar. Lamar, he literally put the offense on his back, and the fact that they wasted that 38-point performance, I don't know. I'd be pretty upset if I was the Ravens offense, specifically Lamar. I think the defense, you live and you learn. You got to accept it. But, I don't know. That was a pretty embarrassing way to go out. You allowed 28 points in the fourth quarter. That's pretty bad, and I think that was one of the at home too. I think that was one of the largest comebacks in NFL history since however long ago.
Yeah. So, anyways, I listened to a couple of shows that are based in Miami, podcast wise, and they're going crazy. Enjoy it to and on.
Just on that though, there's the Tua people are going to try and use this game for a very long time to say that Tua has arrived, and the Tua haters are going to try and say the screen passes. Yeah, it was a one-time performance. He still threw 2 interceptions. Neither of those are true. There's some sort of happy medium in which this is a great game. We like the progression we saw out of Tua, although we're both Tua doubters. I wouldn't call us haters. We're Tua doubters. He's answering questions, like you said, and he's taking steps in the right direction. And we're seeing the benefits of having weapons like Tyreek Hill and Waddle, because he didn't have those his first 2 years, and having an offensive-minded coach who will actually try to help you as a quarterback.
Is this his third year? He had Waddle last year.
He had Waddle last year, but his rookie year he did not have.
Okay, sorry for being nitpicky there. But anyways, that is Dolphins Ravens. Dolphins win 2-on. Y'all can raise your banners for this victory. Congratulations. Ride this wave however long you want to. But now we go to a less exciting game. New England Patriots, they get back to winning ways. They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-14 in a very lackluster game. Definitely not one that we're going to ever be going back and watching, or anyone probably rewatching. If you are, congratulations to you. But yeah, they win 17-14. Patriots kind of get back on track. What are your thoughts on how New England did?
I mean, good win. I really don't know what to say about this game. I didn't pay attention much to it. Like I said, I was watching Red Zone for the early slate. So this game very rarely showed up. The Aguilar catch was really good, but outside of that, I just don't really have a lot to say.
Yeah, I just want to throw in. They got the run game going. I think they were able to use, probably because T.J. Watt was out, able to use their size a little bit more. We did have criticisms on what their offense could be. Looked pretty solid for this game against a good defense. Obviously aided by a turnover by Pittsburgh, which is ironically from a former Patriot. I already saw the conspiracy theories that they were like, they told Gunner to fumble, even though that's probably not true.
He was a double agent.
That's what I'm saying. But yeah, you can mention Aguilar had a good game. He's looking like to be probably their best explosive weapon. They got Jacoby Myers back involved, which is someone who owned Jacoby Myers last year. I was wondering what was going on week 1. But they got him more involved. He's kind of running that Edelman slot role, the over the middle type stuff. So, and then like I mentioned, got the ring game going. Damian Harris got him more involved, and a little bit of Ramondre Stevenson also. And then obviously Mac Jones, he's just doing the best what he can with what he's got. So I really don't have much to add on there. I guess switch over to Pittsburgh. I just want to throw out, like I mentioned before, offensive line is a major concern. I know Mitch Trubisky didn't have the best game, but when they can't run the ball, as we all saw very well outside of some jet sweeps, and they can't really protect the quarterback long enough, it's just a mess. So I wasn't shocked that Pittsburgh is struggling so badly offensively to start off the season.
I have nothing to say.
There's
just not a whole lot going here. I don't know what
Chase
to
Claypool.
add.
Free Chase Claypool. Just
free George Pickens. Free everybody over there. They have too much talent on offense with such a crappy offensive line and the quarterback situation. I don't know.
And I will say, even I see people already clamoring for Kenny Pickett. And I think yes, Pickett is better than Trubisky, but with this offensive line, is like I said, is it worth probably throwing him out there and him getting dinged up and then, I'm not sure if it's worth that. No offense to Mitch, I think that's probably why they paid him a little bit more money. He's gonna have to take these hits for Kenny Pickett basically for a while. Maybe towards the end of the season, make the switch before you destroy the kid's confidence. Because I feel like you throw him out here at this point, it could be. I think it will hamper him more than help him. So that is Patriots Steelers. Not much to add there. Now we go to Detroit, where the Lions got a huge win in front of their home crowd. The first time they were favored in a long time. I forgot the exact amount of time. But nonetheless, they were favored, and they proved Vegas right. They win 36-27 against the Washington Commanders. This game looked like the Commanders were going to come back too, but Lions shut the door on that. What were your thoughts on how the Lions did this against the Commanders?
I was really impressed. Like I said earlier, it's kind of nice we've been hyping up teams like the Lions, and they're actually kind of proving us right. So I was really impressed by that, and I felt like the worries I had about the Commanders' defense in Week 1 came to fruition. They gave up just a lot of explosive plays. We saw Amon St. Brown. He got the 58-yard carry. DeAndre Swift gets a 50-yard carry. Other than that, against the run, they were pretty consistent. Like Jamal Williams had some good carries, but literally Swift, he averaged 6. He had 6 yards outside of that one 50-yard carry on 4 attempts. So he didn't get a lot of rushing attempts. And then Amon St. Brown, like I said, one big carry. But then you add in Amon St. Brown, 49-yard reception, and then Josh Reynolds had like a 50-something yard return. So that's a special teams thing, not a Washington defense thing. But regardless, Washington, they're just giving up explosive plays, and you got to give credit to their offense. Carson Wentz staying resilient, going after it. Their offensive line wasn't doing them a ton of favors. The Detroit defense really shutting down the run game and was getting in Carson Wentz's face for a lot of the day. And he still, like I said, stayed resilient and tried to come back late. But you got to give credit to Detroit because this was a great win for them. and I think that this really shows the culture shift in Detroit because of the Dan Campbell era.
Yeah, we'll say too. Good for Jared Goff. And once again, like we saw in with the Rams, he put a good line, put some skill guys around him. He's not too bad. He could execute the offense. Obviously, we'll see what happens. He probably won't perform well in inclement weather going down the stretch. That was always a big bugaboo of his. But nonetheless, seeing what he can do with a good support system, and like you mentioned too, the Detroit D-line really stepped up, had a great game, took advantage of a poor Washington offensive line, especially Aiden Hutchinson. He had 3 sacks. I think they're all in the first half too. He really came out balled out, and it wasn't really until the second half that Washington got going offensively. And by then it was too little, too late. Never really got the run game going in Washington either, so just makes it easier on your defense. And I will give credit to, I think I tuned into the game a little late, but I think they mentioned Jeff Okudah was lining up on McLaurin a lot, and it wasn't, once again, until later in the game that McLaurin started really getting production, basically. Trust me, I had him on fantasy. I was wondering what the heck happened after the first half because he had a big old goose egg, so that was fun. But nonetheless, regards to Detroit, they played a great game. I want to switch over to Washington real quick. Like you mentioned, their defense, way too simplistic, and I just like to see more creativity out of Jack Del Rio, a guy who's been around a long time. Even if they are missing Chase Young, I don't think he makes that big of a difference this game. Need to do more creative things in the back end because, once again, Jared Goff, he's solid, but he diced you up. It was really just him and Amon St. Brown dicing you up. And they don't even, DJ Chark did, only had 4 targets, did nothing, and no Jameson Williams. Like this, I know it's Washington, but if you're going to try to beat the better teams in the NFL, you got to be better than our defense. So, and then obviously offensive line, potentially an issue for them. We'll see going forward. But that is Detroit and the Commanders. Obviously Detroit won. Now we move to the latter games, starting with the LA Rams. They get on the board. They get their first win. Also held back a furious comeback from the Falcons. They win 31-27. Ironically, they were up 28-3 when the Falcons started making the comeback. I think it was Mark Sanchez on the broadcast. He was like, they may be exercising the jinx. And in that way, he rejinxed them. Nonetheless, Rams bounced back. What were your thoughts on them getting back on the W column?
It was a good game for the Rams. I was a little bit concerned about their defense, obviously late because of what happened in the fourth quarter, but I don't take too much stock into it because one bad quarter, I'm not going to freak out about it. Nice to see Cam Akers get more involved. Wasn't super efficient, but he was more involved. Kupp, obviously doing Cooper Kupp things. Tyler Higbee having a good performance. Allen Robinson should have had a better stat line, but he had a touchdown called back because the medical official in the booth called a medical timeout right as one of the plays started. It was a very weird situation, but I'm not complaining because then Cooper Kupp got the touchdown, and that helps me out in fantasy. But regardless, good performance from the Rams. Not going to take too much stock in the fourth quarter. Almost collapse, but good performance nonetheless.
Yeah, I will say just the mistakes almost cost them. They had the Stafford interception, block punt, Kupp fumble. That was it was almost like Cleveland was just a bad turn of events over and over. But Luckily at this point, they had such a cushion that it didn't really matter. You mentioned them still being patient with Cam Akers running the ball. I still have concerns about their offensive line. Once again, they lost Andrew Whitworth. They lost Corbett when their guards. So they're still piecing things together. And I'm concerned because, Stafford also throwing those interceptions. He may not be as comfortable in the pocket as he was last year. But we'll see. But against some of the better teams, that could be a bigger issue than it was. Moving on to Atlanta, it was really just, I think at the beginning, just Mariota being a little bit careless with the ball at times, whether it be fumbling or his 2 interceptions. It was supposed to be the thing that he was great at, was taking care of the ball coming in the NFL, and it's one of the issues why he hasn't been able to stay the starter and become the franchise guy, is he just hasn't been able to take care of the ball. So that's the only real knock I have on them. Obviously, we like to see more Kyle Pitts. That's like what everyone's raving about, is why isn't Kyle Pitts more involved? So we'll see what they do there. But otherwise, this is just a more talented Rams team, and it was to be expected. But anything you wanted to add in terms of Atlanta?
Shout out Drake London. He's proved me wrong, at least so far. I wasn't super high on him coming into the NFL, but that was a really great performance. He was pretty much the only difference maker that Atlanta honestly had. And I already put the video out today, so I'm just kind of repeating it. But feed Kyle Pitts. It's not even just because I have him in fantasy, but Arthur Smith, you saying we're not playing fantasy football, we're playing winning football. You're 0-2, so like shut up about that kind of stuff and just feed your best offensive player the ball. I know a lot of people are going to start hyping on the Drake London train, and he could be, eventually take that spot as the best player on their offense. I'm not sure, but as of right now, 2 games into his career, Kyle Pitts is still your best offensive weapon, generational tight end talent, historic rookie season last year. There's no excuse for him getting 3 targets and you explaining that you're going to use him as a decoy for Kadarrell Hodge. Stop it.
I was about to say, did you see Matthew Berry's little rant? I think it was yesterday on his, he has his podcast on NBC now. He went on that. He went on a whole specific similar rant about them not utilizing Kyle Pitts more, and so
yeah, I mean, if you're 2-0, okay, fine, I get it. Then you can make that comment, but you're 0-2, so don't sit here and tell me that you're trying to win the game by not getting your best offensive player involved, who, by the way, once again, 4th overall pick. Why pick him there if you're not going to use him? Just pick a tackle or something who can just play every game.
Yeah, which, by the way, if anyone should be an angry Kyle Pitts owner, it should be me, because I just want a quick note. I know we're running behind anyway. I lost in one of my fantasy leagues by 0.5. It really, I know it's karma for last week because I beat you by 0.02. But yes. I had Kyle Pitts. He didn't really do much, and I had Cleveland's defense. So that whole if anyone should be upset at those two, it should be me, because they don't allow the 14 points. Then I probably win, because obviously I think that this was one of those where they nonetheless. Hopefully we see more Kyle Pitts going forward. They integrate ways to get him the ball more, because it's not like he doesn't have a resume, like John mentioned. Had 1,000+ yards last year, under the same offensive coaching staff. So don't know what's going on there. Maybe it's a him and Mariota thing. We'll have to figure that out as time goes on. As speaking of going on, we're going to go on to stay in the Rams division, going to San Francisco. Unfortunately, they lost Trey Lance due to an ankle injury this game. Jimmy G had to step in, and they proved why they kept him around, because he helped to get them this win, 27-7 over the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith and the gang come back to earth. What were your thoughts on San Francisco and pulling this one out?
I mean, first off, it sucks for Trey Lance. Really hate to see a guy, like that gave me Gordon Hayward Celtics flashbacks to when like he just shows up and starts, and then all of a sudden it kind of gets ripped away. Hopefully for Trey Lance, he actually has a better continuation of his career than Gordon Hayward has unfortunately had. But regardless, I mean, it was a good win for San Francisco. I think the thing that stood out the most to me was the team rallying around Jimmy Garoppolo. This roster wants to win. They're ready to win now. And as much as I think that Trey Lance deserves a fair shot, and I totally understood the move of going to him, Jimmy Garoppolo is the better quarterback as of right now. Now, in the future, that might change. In maybe even this season, if Trey Lance had played, that might have changed. But as of today, recording this right now, Jimmy Garoppolo is the better quarterback. And so, as much as it sucks for Trey Lance, and I'm not trying to celebrate the injury by any means, because I'm not even a 49ers fan, the Niners just got better. So, good win for them. Seattle, like you said, they came back down to earth. Wish they would have ran the ball a little bit more. I know they weren't successful whatsoever, but you only ran it 14 times. Maybe it's because you were down, but I even then, like I don't understand why teams don't run the ball despite the fact that like they are losing, because it wasn't even that bad until like you got closer to halftime. So like, where's the more runs in the first half? I don't know. Tyler Lockett, shout out to him, great performance. DK Metcalf, the stats kind of lie a little bit. He had a crazy catch deep down the field that got called back because one of his it was Abraham Lucas, the rookie right tackle, was like a yard upfield or something like that. I can't remember if it was an RPO or maybe he's like holding or something. But yeah, overall, good performance from the Niners. They look good.
I would say, yeah, look good. Obviously, run game's still going, and I am complete with you. As much as I like Trey Lance and what he just potential he provides, he obviously has a better arm than Jimmy. He can do more in terms of his legs. Like you mentioned, Jimmy's just a better passer. He's going to get their passing offense, just be more consistent with their passing offense. And as we've seen, I mean, they were one play away from the Super Bowl last year, and they already made one with Jimmy Garoppolo. So maybe better short term. Maybe the better short term option, like you mentioned. Moving on to the Seahawks, not much to say, like you mentioned. Geno, I just want to throw this out there for all the completion percentage people. He threw 80%, completed 80% of his passes. Look how well that worked out for him. There is something to pushing the ball downfield, and once again, not all his fault. This offense, like I've said a million trillion times, just not creative, not very good. I mean, it's like they used up all their creativity for week 1 to beat Russell Wilson in that first half, and then like they're like, okay, we used all the plays, let's just go back to what we do, and everyone just runs straight lines, and we'll just run the ball and be simplistic there too. So, and yeah, like you mentioned too, they weren't even patient with the run, which is like Pete Carroll's MO, especially with how Rashad Penny ended last year, and they invested a 2nd-round pick in Kenneth Walker and a 1st-round pick in a tackle. Yeah, I thought they would be a little more run heavy, but they haven't thus far. We'll see if that changes at some point. Who knows? I mean, Seattle's just a weird, interesting team. But anyways, San Francisco takes care of business. We're not going to spend any more time talking about Pete Carroll in Seattle because I really don't want to, and there's not much else to say. Now we move on to another game that was much less interesting than also. That is the Denver Broncos taking care of business against the Houston Texans, 16-9. Unfortunately for the Broncos, especially my guy Nathaniel Hackett from Green Bay, clock issues crept up again, John. But nonetheless, they persevered. So what were your thoughts on the Broncos?
I'm not going to call this a good win because it was a win, but I don't think it was a good one because although all my Houston Texans friends want the world to believe that they're not as bad as they actually are, this should have been an easy win. Just like last week for the Broncos, it should have been an easy win. And although they won the game, I'm just simply not impressed by what I'm seeing out of this team. I don't know what the issue is. Russell Wilson didn't look great. There was a spot where Javonte Williams was wide open in the end zone, right up the middle. And some people want to say, oh, well, Russell Wilson was short and there was an offensive lineman in front of him. If you look at the clip, he wasn't even looking Javonte's way right up the middle. He's looking left towards, I think, Sutton on like a fade. So I don't know. Russell, maybe it's just he's got to get back into form. Obviously, doesn't play a lot during the preseason, all that kind of stuff. So maybe it's just shaking the rust off. But he looked a little slow on the day. And just in terms of like his read and his processing speed. Sutton had a good game. It sucks that Jerry Jeudy got hurt. I don't know how long he's going to be out, if he's going to be out, but hopefully for his sake he's not out because obviously they're already missing Tim Patrick.
Considered day-to-day as of a day ago. So he has not been ruled out for week 3. He could play week 3. He's questionable. That's his status.
Day-to-day, I would assume if he's out, then he misses one game. But other than that, he should be all right. So that's good news, but yeah, just wasn't super impressed with Denver in this game. The clock issues were weird. I saw it was the broadcast team that said this, that last year Denver only ever had 2 delay of games the entire season. So Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, multiple quarterbacks, different stuff, only 2. And with this new regime, a better quarterback who should, be a veteran, all that kind of stuff. And it's not Russell Wilson's fault. So let me correct that. Just, more stability on everything else around the organization. And you already have 3 on the year. And I think that's because of Nathaniel Hackett's indecisiveness. Like it just seemed like there was 2 different opportunities where I think they had him that he looked like he wanted to go for it on 4th down and he might've been calling it a play, but then he sent out the field goal unit a little late. And you just got to make up your mind and stick with it because that you got to get out there and run the play. So I'm still not on some of the Broncos fans train of got to get rid of Nathaniel Hackett, but there's some concerning things happening right now. And if they don't look better, they're going to get crushed by a lot better teams than Seattle and Houston.
Yeah, only thing I want to add in terms of Denver is, it is a completely new system for Russell too. He's, like I said, he's been with probably Seattle, which has met in terms of levels of complexity, I want to say like elementary math and then go into like high school math, like calculus. Now, because Nathaniel Hackett does run complex, a lot more screens, but there probably are more reads. So maybe that's what is causing, the play calling issues. I thought it wouldn't be an issue until this game, obviously. And obviously it is an issue because they were at home. It's not like they had the Seattle fans and the Seattle crowd noise affecting them like week 1. That's why I gave him kind of a pass. I was like, week 1, all that. Russell, going back home, that's always awkward. But yeah, this game, there was no excuse for that. So I hope for Nathaniel Hackett's sake that they fix that because I think he's a good play caller, a good offensive mind. It's just clock management is a part of head coaching. And like you said, maybe he needs to get Someone needs to give him that oh my wait, blanking. Sean Payton little card that has all those, and someone just needs to.
Yeah.
I mean, and also I think I remember hearing somewhere some of these coaches have. There's a specific coach as a clock management coach or like a timeout coach. I don't know. They got to figure something out there, clean that up because this is a Denver team. I think even though I had them as like a borderline playoff team, I still this stuff that shouldn't be an issue. This shouldn't be almost costing them games.
I stand by this take to this day. Every team just hires one guy who has played a lot of Madden and just let them decide all of your clock management stuff.
I know,
because
like,
those
listen,
Madden players got
hire
that
one of
drilled into
us.
their
Like,
head.
listen, hire one of us, and I'll be like, I'll be like, all right, you got 3 seconds. Are we going for it or not? All right, we're not going for it. Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you could. I'll even decide on the fourth down stuff. You call the play, but
and then
I'll
you
let
can blame
know when
us.
we go
You
for
blame
it.
us.
Yeah.
If they say why'd you go for a field goal, ask Aaron and John. I'll be like, listen.
And here, guess what? Too, I'll throw this in as well. After every game, I'll do a post-game press conference, so the media can hold me accountable. I will answer for my fourth down decisions.
And listen, you don't have to pay us like $1 million. We'll take like I'll take a 6. We'll split the $100K salary. Go 50K, 50K.
Yeah.
That's fine. And we still do the podcast. We're living like. So Nathaniel Hackett, if you're out there, you're seeing this, like we're here, we're available. Like use us. Anyways, and in terms of the Houston, there's not much to say. Like you said, not a lot of talent, and I mean, especially on the offense. Once Denver was like, okay, let's take away Brandon Cooks because he's the only one kind of killing us. Although Nico Collins had a solid game. Houston still in the rebuilding phases, but Dameon Pierce freed a little bit, had a solidish game for what he could do. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Denver takes care of business, but not in the dominant way that we all kind of expected. That was one where John got right. You had Houston, I had Denver, so that was one of our differences. This is where I start getting all my picks wrong, people. So next one, though, we both got wrong. And as your Dallas Cowboys, they prevailed. Cooper Rush led them to victory, a 20-17 win over the Bengals. Let's start with your Cowboys, since you are a Dallas fan. What were your thoughts on this victory?
I don't know if the pod curse would have struck if I did pick them, but I was so close to picking them, and I didn't, and I should have. I kind of regret it. Unless the pod curse would have struck, then I regret nothing. Cooper Rush looked good. I don't understand why the offense all of a sudden just gives him a lot of layups, and when Dak plays, they don't. There was just a lot of easy plays, especially when like Noah Brown is killing it. Like, I don't know. But yeah, Cooper Rush looked good. Didn't like light up the world. Didn't do anything crazy, but he did what he needed to do. And that's all you can really ask for a backup quarterback. And so all the people who were worried about the backup situation in Dallas the last couple of years, myself included, I think Cooper Rush, after 2 games having started now and being 2-0, has proven that he's a solid backup.
Also, I think on the broadcast before the game, Jason Garrett was like mentioning about how Cooper's always been in the building, and like Jason Garrett was very confident in Cooper Rush going, your former favorite head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But I will say in regards to what you said about them making, it's the thing that annoys me. It happened with Mike White last year when he kept stepping for Zach Wilson. He had that great game, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, like did that make him the quarterback?" And I'm like, "No, like they gave him like 20 screens, and they gave Zach Wilson like 1 or 2 a game. Like they just like why can't we do this for Zach Wilson?" It's like what you said about Dak. It happens so often that. It happened with Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. Kind of they start running these Philly, all these crazy stuff because they want to help the backup. It's like you can't do that for the more talented. Like imagine if you did that for the starter. It's this weird thing. I don't understand it, but I'm with you there.
I mentioned this last week. It's a thing that Sean Payton said about Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and this is something that they should have done in this game as well, is they just add more layups. It doesn't matter how elite your quarterback is. Give him easy plays because that's going to build his confidence. It's going to build the offense's confidence. It's going to move the ball. It's going to, force the defense to adjust to certain things. There's no negatives to just running easy plays that get you basic yardage. So, I'm glad the Cowboys did that, but I don't know why we can't do that more often. Overall, I'm worried about Dalton Schultz. He got hurt. That I don't know how long he's going to be kept out, if he's going to be kept out at all. But he's playing on the franchise tag for even just his sake, I'm hoping that he's going to be all right and can have a solid year this year, because at least based on the Tampa game, he looks really good. And then, what were you going to say?
Dalton Schultz, per ESPN 9 hours ago, via RotoWire, questionable for week 3. It's a PCL sprain. Yeah, so he's questionable for the Monday night game. So his injury's not long term. It's to be a week to week type thing.
Okay,
so
that's good.
Playing through it.
Whenever guys get hurt on franchise tags, it always just makes me really worried because, it's kind of a gamble for them to, and I didn't expect Schultz to like hold out or anything. He's not like that big name of a player, but still just sucks when that kind of stuff happens and potential money could be left on the table. But yeah, I mean, the defense, they did exactly, once again, 2 weeks in a row, they've done exactly what I truly believe this defense can do, and that is hold opponents to under 24 points every single game. Like, there's very few offenses that they're going to play this year. I think, like, they play Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and just historically, they've kind of struggled with Aaron Rodgers. He's kind of picked them apart.
Yeah, but our offense isn't great this year, so.
It's not great this year, but still, I don't know. I mean, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, still getting nightmares. That game, he had like 4 touchdowns against us.
We'll see. UTEP, being a UTEP native, I don't know. He just balls out against y'all. But anyways,
something. Anyway, it's like Kyler Murray in AT&T Stadium. But regardless, there's very few offenses this year that I'm like truly worried that they're going to dominate this Cowboys defense, because the Cowboys just have playmakers. Shout out to Trayvon Diggs. I know a lot of people love to hate on him, and he gets memed all the time. He matched up with Jamar Chase a majority of the game, and in those matchups, once again, a majority of the game, 2 catches for 14 yards. That is clamped. That is locked up. After that, Jamar Chase, for the whole defense, I think, did a really good job against him. But besides that, he had 3 catches for 30 yards away from Diggs. So shout out Trayvon Diggs, because when he wants to cover, he can. It's just he likes to be aggressive, go for the ball, and Dan Quinn encourages it. And so everybody likes to clown him for it. But regardless, he had a great game. To me, I might be wrong on this because I haven't looked at like the whole league-wide stats. Micah Parsons, I think, is the front runner 2 weeks in, so take this with a grain of salt, for Defensive Player of the Year. I believe he leads the league in sacks. I think he's like tied for second in tackles for loss. He's up there in a lot of key stats. So Micah Parsons, I mean, monster start to the season. I don't know.
And I just want to add, I'm seeing this per South Walder and ESPN Analytics. Micah Parsons is the 5th player to record back-to-back games with a pass rush win rate of 50% or higher. The only other 4, Von Miller, Dwight Freeney, Robert Quinn, Melvin Ingram. It's a pretty good company.
Very good company. And Robert Quinn, although he's probably the lower end of all 4 of those guys, he had that 1 year where he had like 20-something sacks. So maybe it wasn't 20. It might have been like 19. Anyway, I think it was 20. Yeah. But regardless, I mean, yeah, this defense, they're stepping up in ways that I truly believe they can. I like that linebacker play out of Anthony Barr. I thought the roughing the passer was kind of weak, but when they showed it in slow motion, I guess you can call it one. I don't know. Yeah. Joe Burrow, it was the one where he didn't slide. He was falling forward, and I guess you can consider that giving yourself up. I don't know. I thought it was kind of soft.
Yeah, add it to the list. Add to the list of referee complaints that we have.
Yeah. There was one real quick though when he was sliding. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the one where he was falling forward.
Yeah, I saw
overall. Like I said, I like what the defense is doing, and I think if they can continue this, play complementary football, and the coaching staff doesn't go back to being dumb, I don't know. Cowboys, they can win some games without Dak. We'll see.
Yeah. I will say, liked a little more patience with the run game a little bit more. I got Tony Parr a little more involved this week. I will say that for Dallas.
Finally.
And he already hit the main points. I mean, Parsons is starting to get there. I mean, he obviously is in a Defensive Player of the Year conversation, but starting to get there in terms of like the TJ Watts, Aaron. He's starting to reach that echelon of like this dude's like not just elite. He's one of a kind, it seems like, because he's just balling out at wherever they put him. I will say, too, great creativity with Dan Quinn. One of my biggest knocks with him in Atlanta was just not creative enough on defense, but I think maybe he's learned from that because it seems like he's still being creative in year 2 here, with his blitzes, with his coverages, just not letting offenses get settled. And I will say on the flip side for the Cincinnati, and this is more credit to my boy Chris Sims, he mentioned it seems like teams have kind of figured out Zach Taylor's offense and his tendencies. So maybe that's something he needs to go back to the drawing board. And like you mentioned, the layups, I think the Bengals need a few more layup plays because their offensive line is. We thought that, or I assumed, I was one of the people that drank the Kool-Aid that they had. It was not say studs, but they had resolved it. It wasn't going to be as worse as last year. But
I will say real quick too about La'el Collins. He has a track history of coming into the season a little out of shape, not fully ready. So I wouldn't maybe fully judge at least him yet. I don't know about the other guys, but at least him yet.
Like they revamped this offensive line. We expected it to be better, and it really hasn't looked that way. I think Joe Burrow's been sacked like 12 or 13 times already for 2 weeks.
They're on pace for him to be sacked 111 times. That would be over double how much he was last year.
Yeah, so they obviously have to figure out ways to get the ball out sooner, protect Joe Burrow. I don't have the answers, but they need to figure out the answers in Cincinnati.
The layups are part of it, but Joe Burrow, this is something that I think a lot of people have overlooked because of how bad the offensive line is. He has a tendency to hold onto the ball a little bit long sometimes.
Yeah, he has too much belief in his ability to be slippery in the pocket at times.
Yeah. And it's not all the time. I'm not saying it's like, this massive downfall, but there are some times that the sack is his fault.
It's a blessing and a curse, I think, is what it's like his patience in terms of, not giving up on the play. It's kind of like Carson Wentz's, where like Wentz for the most part is mostly bad, but yeah, like where it's just okay, throw the ball away, check it down, like you want that more of that out of him as opposed to, or you just want him to do that more often, basically.
Yeah.
If you're
there's times where like there's a play to be made, whether it's throwing it away or there's a guy open in the flat or something, and he just holds on to it a little bit too long, hoping for something else to develop. And I'm not talking about like the offensive line has crumbled, but just like a normal play where like, all right, the defense is coming. Like you got, sometimes you just got to get rid of it.
Yeah, like your 3-4 seconds of protection is up. Like your clock should be already ringing that you need to get rid of this ball or get out. So
yeah, like I said, Joe Burrow fan base, don't come attacking me. It's not all the time, just sometimes.
Yeah, it's one of the few flaws he has. So, anyways, we'll see if the Bengals can right the ship. They are now 0-2, something I don't think many of us saw. So
I do want to ask you real quick. Out of all the 0-2 teams, who do you think is the most likely to be good? We have the Bengals.
Okay, thank you.
We have the Panthers.
Okay.
We have the Falcons. We have the Raiders. We have the Titans.
Which one do I think will be best of that group?
Which one do you think will be the best of that 0-2 group? And that's hard. The Titans, the Raiders, the Bengals, like even the Falcons have kind of looked all right. Like that 0-2 group doesn't all feel like 0-2.
I'm going to say the Bengals. Close consideration, the Raiders and Titans. They just got too much talent, especially on offense, where I think they're going to they have to right the ship at some point. The other two teams, especially the Titans, we'll talk about them later. They have some issues. They have, I think, bigger issues, but that's a close one. But yeah, those three are the three teams that went in my consideration.
Like everything in me wants to go Raiders, but I'm just kind of worried about the divisional schedule potentially really like hurting their chance. You still got the Chiefs twice. If the Broncos figure it out, you got them twice. That's an if. And you still got the Chargers once, to where like I'm not super worried about like the Steelers when they play them again, or the Browns, but I don't know if Deshaun Watson. I'm going to go with the Raiders just because that's what my gut says, but close second would be the Bengals because I do not think it's time to panic on them yet.
Yeah. So, anyways, so that's the Bengals. Dallas wins that one. We both got that wrong. We both picked Cincy. Speaking of the Las Vegas Raiders, we go to them. They are home opener. Won those games once again. It seemed like they had this game in the bag. They were up 20 to 0 at one point. I tuned to this game late and rewatched it later. But Cardinals come back, win in overtime. It was a crazy game too because Hunter Renfrow just got the ball knocked out of him. He also got injured in that play, and scoop and score for the Cardinals in overtime. Let's start with the Cardinals, I guess. I mean, they pull off the big victory, John. But are you buying the Cardinals stock? Or are we still selling on Cliff Kingsbury?
Still selling on Cliff Kingsbury. If you want to call me a hater, whatever, I don't care. I just think that Kyler kind of put the team on his back late in the game. There was just certain plays, like that one play where he was just running around for like 12 seconds or something.
And he ran like 84 yards. I think he covered 84 yards on his own.
Yeah, and then he runs in for the touchdown. I don't give Cliff any credit for that play. Like the play,
obviously
the play did
everyone
not work.
Was covered or it didn't work.
Yeah,
it was just Kyler, just literally backyard, like middle school, elementary school stuff, where you just the one kid that's more athletic than everybody is just running around, and the one middle schooler is outrunning all the elementary school kids.
Exactly. So the play didn't work. Kyler made the play work. Like he turned it into his own play and he ran in. Like that kind of stuff. I'm just like, okay, Cliff. Like you don't have DeAndre Hopkins, you don't have Rondale Moore. Let's make some plays happen. And a lot of these plays weren't really that impressive. Like,
no,
I mean, like, I don't know. It just feels like, okay, you're getting Zach Ertz involved, you're getting Marquise Brown involved, and these are kind of basic plays that you're riding off their talent. And I'm not like saying that Cliff's the worst coach in the NFL, because there were still some moments where like they had good drives, but the fact that like the Dolphins, it all had to come late. I'm like, okay, Cliff, after 2 quarters, or not even like going into halftime, you didn't score at all in the first quarter, and going into the second quarter, you also didn't score at all. You don't really have any great drives, like punt, interception, punt, like those are your drives. Like I don't get it. You got that one touchdown. I think it was in the second quarter.
They didn't score a touchdown until third quarter, I think. Yeah, until third quarter. You talking about the Cardinals?
Yeah, this is so weird. I'm looking at the ESPN box score. It doesn't. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm reading it wrong. It was end of quarter 2, and then the touchdowns below.
They do it weird. They do it by half.
Yeah. But like I guess you come out of halftime, another punt, and then you finally score like that one touchdown. But there's just too many drives where I'm like, how is this happening? 5 plays, 4 yards, you punt. 6 plays, 19 yards. It's like, just start out the game. I just feel like Kyler Murray's too talented. Hollywood Brown is too talented. It sucks James Conner got hurt, so I guess I kind of give him a pass there. But even then, like James Conner was in the beginning of the game, didn't have the greatest start. Darrell Williams had a decent performance. I don't know. I just feel like despite the fact that, yes, you don't have Hopkins and Rondale Moore, there's still a lot of talent on this team that there's just no excuse for the way that they started out this game. And then all of a sudden Kyler just goes hero mode, and we're going to give you the credit. I'm not buying it. Shout out to Kyler. Shout out, the performance that he had in that game. It really felt like he just put the team on his back.
Yeah, I think the numbers don't really show unless you watch the game. Obviously, that's how much. Like basically, some people may say, "Well, the Raiders' defense blew it." I mean, I think they got tired running after that little guy all game, and especially in the second half, the offense. Credit the Cardinals' defense for slowing down the Raiders' offense. They didn't let Devontae Adams go off at all. He had only 2 catches, 12 yards, and so they really took him out of the picture. And then from there on out, I mean, Raiders' offense couldn't just get a sustaining drive to help their defense out and add more points. Eventually, Kyler Murray in this game, you're gonna tire you out. And yeah, like you mentioned, I'm not gonna give Cliff credit for that. I think they should have been more patient with the run game. I know we've been saying that a lot, but they were doing pretty good in the run game. Even Darrell Williams, 8 carries, 59 yards. Even Eno Benjamin, 8 carries, 31 yards. And James Conner, 7 of 25. He's doing it. That's about 3.5 yards per carry for him. Like, a little more patience with the run, like we've been saying, and maybe you can get some play action, but they don't really even do play action, and they don't really have a lot of. I don't think I've really seen much, if any, like pre-snap movement or any sort of adjustments So, yeah, I think there's just more credit to Cardinals defense for keeping them in this one, keeping them striking distance, and then like you mentioned too, Kyler Murray making plays on his own. Keeping drives and plays alive, especially those 2 2-point conversions. The second one, AJ Green. I mean, that was just a rifle down the middle. That's why arm strength matters, people. So you can hit those tight windows. But it's just unfortunate for the Raiders because for the most part, they feel like they were the better overall team. It's just ran out of gas at the end, and then even in overtime, they were driving and. Credit. I think it was Isaiah Simmons, the one that forced the fumble, and then Byron Murphy ran it back. And then, unfortunately, Hunter Renfrow got hurt in that play, so he couldn't even try to run them down. So it happens in the NFL. You get a little unlucky, and that's what happened. I feel like with Las Vegas and for the Cardinals. I think even our resident Cardinals fan would say they got a little lucky. / it's all Kyler. So. We'll see what happens with both these teams, but I think these are definitely 2 teams. And we both feel, just from what we both said, especially the Cardinals, just a little disappointing with their performances 2 weeks in. But now we move on to the Sunday night game. My Green Bay Packers, they took care of business against the Chicago Bears, 27-10. Not too surprising. It was a big second quarter the Packers rode. Obviously I'm the Packer fan. I'll just mention this. Like that we got Aaron Jones more involved, not just in the running and passing game. That's what I was expecting coming into the season. So I'm glad that they, got him more involved because he's probably our most explosive weapon. That goes for wide receiver or running back. AJ Dillon's very good. Don't get me wrong. I love AJ. I love Quadzilla, but he's more of the power, the thumper on our team. He's not going to be the guy that's going to that can, beat you in a foot race 50 yards downfield more than not times than not. Defense obviously looked good, but I think, and we'll talk about this in a second, I think that's more. I'm not going to say, pat the defense on the back, Green Bay defense on the back too much, because I think that's just more the Bears' offense has issues, which we'll talk about later. But anything Packer wise you wanted to throw in there? I don't think there's much to say.
It's tough to really judge the Packers off this game. I mean, I sort of briefly mentioned earlier, great rivalry. They were talking about the whole broadcast about how this is the most played rivalry in the NFL. It just hasn't been competitive in a long time. So I don't know. I mean, credit to the Packers defense. I was a little concerned about the run defense because Montgomery actually had a pretty decent performance, and so did Khalil Herbert. And like the 4 carries he had, it just felt sort of inconsequential because the Bears just weren't able to score. So I don't know. That little blip gave me a little bit of worry, like I said, because of you're harping on the previous failures against the run throughout the years. But it's one game. It's the only thing that Chicago had. Really concerned about how many passes they're not attempting. Like they've attempted 28 passes on the season, and I think almost every NFL team in the league has over 28 completions. I might be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure I saw that stat though. So I don't know.
Shock me.
Yeah, this is one of those games where it feels very hard to take anything away from it outside of the fact that, hey, calm down, all the people who were like panicking that Green Bay was gonna die this year. Like they're fine.
Yeah, may not win the Super Bowl, but definitely in the playoffs. And yeah, what do you want to add to the Bears offense? Yeah, I mean, just like I was one to have concerns about Justin Fields throwing coming in, but since then I've been like, okay, he's improved it. So I don't know why they're not giving him more opportunities to throw the ball. They were behind most of the game too. Like open up the field. Cole Kmet has yet to have a catch this year. As someone who also owns him in fantasy, not complaining because I own him in fantasy, just because he was a second round tight end. He had a really good year last year. I was assuming he was going to build off that, and then even Darnell Mooney, 1 catch for -4 yards. Like it seems like, unfortunately, like we mentioned, for Justin Fields, they're not putting the pieces around him, and right now too, they're not really even giving him a chance to play quarterback. It's just like, and even then, like not many quarterback design runs either for him. So we'll have to see what happens going forward, but it's just unfortunate thus far, and hopefully they find ways to utilize him better, or literally just put the ball in his hands. Literally put the ball in his hands more often. That's the only, I would just like to see that more in terms of their offense, and because we can't evaluate it because all they did was hand the ball off to Montgomery and Herbert, which, hey, solid running backs, but they're not Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor. They're not carrying you and being the main threat. You have Justin Fields. You literally traded two first-round picks for him, and I don't know, at some point management's got to come down, I'm assuming, and be like, hey, we wasted 2 first-round picks on this guy. We would like for you to use him a little bit more, please. I don't know, probably in a much meaner tone, but anyways, so Packers took care of business. I'm not going to say the passing games have been resolved. Obviously Alan Lazard came back, was okay, but against a better secondary, against a better offense, we'll have to see for Green Bay if that is an issue still. But now we go to the Monday night games. There are 2 of them. Neither one really competitive, unfortunately. First one up is the Buffalo Bills. They exercise their Tennessee Titans demons. Titans have always given them issues. I thought it was going to be a closer game. I was wrong. Buffalo completely blew them out of the water, 41-7. Went from 7-7 and just ballooned up from that point on. I think you asked me last week, right? Or was it last picks if you're concerned about Tennessee? Was it Tennessee?
Yeah, I was talking about if they could start out 0-4, and we'll see. Anyway,
I'm not hitting the panic button yet, but I just want to start on Tennessee real quick, and I'll throw it to you. This is obvious, but they're missing A.J. Brown. I mean,
yeah.
Derrick Henry is not looking the same. I'm not hitting the panic button on Derrick Henry. He's been known to have slow starts, and he is coming off a foot injury. So I'm not sure if it's foot injury or just a typical slow start. They did lose Taylor Lewan early. That obviously hurt their run and pass game. But I think the main thing is they're missing just a top A.J. Brown, top 10 receiver who was very consistent for them. Whenever Derrick Henry wasn't going, they could at least rely on him, and they don't have that. And although Tannehill didn't have a great performance, I'm still not calling to call it. I'm still not, in the camp that's yearning for him to be pulled. I know he did get pulled, but I just think you still got to keep going with him. And the offense was the main issue, I think, for the Titans. But anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I'm not fully panicking on the Titans because the Bills, I mean, look, they made the Rams look silly. So it's not like, I don't know, the Bills are they're a step above right now. Like what they're doing on defense is pretty revolutionary. I think they're really bringing about this wave of the death of the single high safety era, in which that was the thing. When Seattle brought that onto the scene, everybody did it, and Buffalo doesn't do it at all. They always have those two guys, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, deep. They're always, I mean, they're not always deep. Like sometimes they'll mix up the coverages and they'll bring them down and stuff like that. But they're just doing a lot of really creative stuff in terms of disguising packages. They're running this one package that I saw some like in-depth breakdown video that was talking about. They're running this one specific like death coverage that Nick Saban has developed. That's kind of like taken defensive, personnel by storm. So doing a lot of creative stuff on defense. It's just going to mess with a lot of different teams. So I'm not shocked that Tennessee struggled against it. And overall, I don't know. I expected the Buffalo offense to kind of shred the Tennessee defense. You don't have Harold Landry, who's your main guy to get a lot of pressure on the outside. The secondary struggled last week. I kind of expected with just a stud like Josh Allen and Diggs. It's kind of hard to have a bounce back game. Like you're looking for like a little bit more of a layup than that. And I mean the Bills, they took care of business, so nothing about them. But I will say, and I made a little video about it and asked you about it last week too. The 0-4 thing, it's something to look out for. They play the Raiders next week. Both teams are 0-2. Both teams are going to want to bounce back, at least in terms of offensive talent. The Raiders have more, and that's a game where we're going to get to our picks later in the week. But that's a game where the Titans secondary, they need to bounce back because they got some weapons over there.
Yeah, and I think they will, but we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, in regards to the Bills, only thing I had to note, I think we talked about last night. First off, Josh Allen, just he's gone purely surgical now. Once again, this is not all the hate Josh Allen haters out there. It's time to retire the hate. Like he's here, he's for real, and he's also.
I got some coworkers saying he's the best quarterback in the league. So even the casual fans are now recognizing his greatness.
Hey, we had on our rankings anyway. Just say Josh Allen apparently studied a book out of Aaron Rodgers' playbook. He's starting to integrate the hard count, which is already I imagine the defense already annoying enough because you want to hurry up and get off the ball so you can contain Josh Allen. Now you got to worry about a hard count to slow you down. That's just it can't be fun. But anyways, not too worried about Tennessee. I think their defense, they have talent. They'll figure it out. In terms, like last year, they kind of got off to every year. They kind of got to a slow start, kind of like how New England does, even in the Tom Brady era. They would kind of get off to a slow start, especially defensively. And then once they finally figured out how to, coach these guys up, once they get on the same page and figure out how to use everybody, I think they'll be fine on defense. And on offense, I don't think it's going to be the worst offense, but I think that they'll find ways to move the ball and be efficient and play complementary to their defense, like they did down the stretch last year. So. Yeah, not certainly hitting the panic button yet. And like you mentioned, they played the Raiders and they also play the Colts too. So, and the way the Colts are going, who knows? But anyways, that was the first Monday nighter. That was easy to go over. Now we go to the last one, Philadelphia, Minnesota, and that one wasn't much of a shocker either. Philadelphia Eagles take care of business 24-7. It was all in the first half. Nothing happened in the second half. Darius Slay, 2 picks. Game could have been closer. Unfortunately, our guy Irv Smith dropped a huge touchdown pass, which would have made the game more interesting and gave the Vikings some much needed momentum. Obviously, it's not the reason they lost. Many other reasons, but I guess let's start with the Eagles. John, they stay rolling. Jalen Hurts is still balling, and even though AJ Brown didn't put up all the numbers he did last time, it was a much better group effort this time. So, what were your thoughts on them?
I mean, they moved the ball crazy well. Like the amount of yards this offense had was kind of absurd. It's weird because once again, week 2, it's hard to tell. Like, okay, is the Vikings defense just really bad or is the Eagles offense really good? It's probably sort of maybe a combo of both. I don't know. But they moved the ball with ease. But the thing that really impressed me, and I think this actually goes to show that Jalen Hurts is potentially taking like a pretty good step, is he was throwing the ball over the middle. That sounds super basic, but literally if you look at his passing charts over the last 2 years, he almost never threw the ball over the middle. Almost never. And that was really what concerned me when they got A.J. Brown was, okay, A.J. Brown's a great talent, but if you go look at like any A.J. Brown highlight reel, a lot of it is like in cuts into the middle, and that's where Ryan Tannehill would find him. And I was like, if that's what he dominates at and Jalen Hurts doesn't throw there, well, what are we going to do? Well, Jalen Hurts was using the middle of the field, and I think that shows some solid progression. For some younger quarterbacks, it's a little easier to utilize the sideline because you can throw it between the receiver and the sideline. You don't have to worry about players on both sides potentially coming at the ball. So sometimes it's a little easier for them to read. But Jalen Hurts is using the middle, so I was really impressed by that. Really solid performance from the whole team. Like you said, other guys got involved. Devonta Smith had a fantastic game. I think he was a really underrated part of that game, especially after I think he had a donut in week 1.
Yeah, donut.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's good to see him get 7 targets, catch all 7 of them, get 80 yards. Dallas Goedert had a good game. Quez Watkins had a nice long touchdown. Like you said, A.J. Brown, he shows up. Miles Sanders is doing well. I don't know, just everybody on Philly's offense is really cranking right now, and their defense was really impressive too. Big play Slay shows up. I'm sitting there watching this game thinking, man, why did I pick Minnesota? It was all based off of what I expected on the whole year, and I forgot that they have Kirk Cousins in prime time. He's 2-10 on Monday night. That is the worst record in NFL history on Monday night if you don't count the guys who are 0-1. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, good win for the Eagles. We'll see if they can continue to do it moving forward, and watch out for that Vikings defense moving forward, because although I was impressed with what they did week 1, maybe that was just some Packers rust, some, specific rookie guys not having, the experience yet. And maybe the Vikings defense is actually bad.
I do want to say in regards to Philly's defense, too, maybe a reason why they had their way with the Minnesota offense. I was worried about them being too simplistic. And I think they showed a graphic, too. They actually were a little more, sent a few more blitzes, a little more creativity there on the defensive side of the ball, so giving them credit there. And then I'm not one to really use the Kirk Cousins primetime stacks. I don't think it really matters. But it was just unfortunate that they did have a chance to get back in the game, but he threw that one pick in the end zone to Darius Slay when Justin Jefferson, and apparently Justin Jefferson said afterwards it was on him. I'm guessing he was supposed to kind of box out Slay. It was more of like a jump ball opportunity, and he kind of just more kept running the route. So that one may not be on him. And then obviously I mentioned Irv Smith. That was just a huge momentum swing, because if he had caught that, he's walking in the end zone and maybe a different ball game. But yeah, otherwise Philly-wise, I don't have anything else to mention. Like you said, they were pretty dominant. The offensive line, one of the best in the league, and we're starting to see them utilize it fully, opening up holes for the run game for Hurts and Sanders. And then once teams kind of collapsed, and like you mentioned, Hurts is able to hurt them, no pun intended, take some deep shots with these receivers he's got. So, yeah, it's interesting the bind Philly puts you in. And I will say, too, their Minnesota offense weren't able to really run the ball, and then for some reason they just couldn't get the receivers going. I'm not sure what Philly did defensively in terms of secondary-wise to really confuse them. Once again, maybe it was the pressure that Kirk Cousins was facing, because they do have a good front. Yeah, we'll have to see if let's see how Minnesota bounces back if they can, because it's just two different. It's like Jekyll and Hyde, week 1, week 2 for them. So we'll see what they can do. But that is the pod. We'll be back later in the week with our picks against the spread. Obviously, I got to make some ground on John. But otherwise, you can find our content on YouTube at Shut Up and Ball, Shut Up and Ball is the page there. We're on obviously all podcast streaming platforms, which is, once again, Shut Up and Ball. And then we have our Facebook page, which is once again at Shut Up and Ball. And then our Instagram, though, is our main source of social media. Like John mentioned, made a post today regarding freeing Kyle Pitts, and that's at Shut Up and Ball Pod on Instagram. And our Twitter and TikTok are at Shut Up and Ball. Once again, you can like, comment, subscribe, give us any feedback there. Otherwise, we will see you all next week or later in the week for our week 3 picks against the spread. We'll probably do that tomorrow, so I'm not going to have us make that pick right now. So, anyways, see y'all later. See y'all week 3.